If you haven't watched the previous parts, go watch them right now. The links are pinned in the comments and in the description. In the previous episode of this manhwa, we saw how
someone loudly called out his name, catching his attention, and as Han Fong turned back, a flying slap came toward him. A woman in a red coat appeared and slapped Han Fong hard. This woman was none other than Li Hyena. Han Fong was taken aback, wondering what had happened. Hyena vehemently announced that Han Fong had let her down, expressing her disappointment in him. The sound of the slap was high enough to attract everyone's attention, and the hyena yelling made it even bad, asking why his bootlicker had not been replying to her messages. But he was still in a daze, shocked that Hyena just slapped him. Did she just slap me? With a murderous look in his eyes, Han Fong placed a hand on his red cheek as he stared at Hyena. How she actually dared to slap me. I haven't even settled her previous debts yet, and she has the audacity to slap me for no reason. Did she think I'm that easy to bully a bootlicker? MC remained silent and tried his best to remain calm. As Hyena continued to shout at him, she questioned if Han Fong was deaf or was he mute. Did he not hear that his goddess was talking to him? After a brief moment, Han Fong sighed heavily, then apologized to Hyena. He didn't need to sabotage his plan before it had even begun, Han Fong rationalized. Han Fong replied that he had an unexpected situation, a complication that made him unable to deliver the supplies he promised. Hyena was shocked to learn that the supplies got stolen. Han Fong clarified that he put the items outside his door and then returned to his apartment to retrieve his keys, only to find them gone. Hyena then asked if Han Fong searched for it. Yes, he said, I did search for it, but unfortunately I couldn't find any clues at all. Hyena proceeded to ask if Han Fong still had some supplies left. Han Fong replied that he didn't have much left. His current supplies would probably last him for a few days if he only eats one meal a day. Hyena only heard the portion she was interested in and got excited, exclaiming that it was great news at this moment. Her expression was that of a soul devoured. Her eyes were empty, like the bottomless abyss, and not caring about anything or anyone other than herself, she told Han Fong that he could split his resources in half and share it with her. That way, they can both get through the disaster together. He just needs to eat one meal every 2 days, and he will be fine. Listening to this, Han Fong could not speak. How shameless Hyena was to even be able to utter such things was beyond his comprehension. Then, as a sly grin formed on his lips, he remembered. Oh, that's right, in her eyes. I am just a tool for her to use when needed. Her worthless bootlocker. Han Fong thought he agreed to Hauna's request, saying that he did promise her after all, they would split his resources equally. Hyena immediately started playing nice, thanking Han Fong. She also told Han Fong to deliver it to her apartment because she will be waiting outside her door. Han Fong agreed to this, adding that they should do it at night and he would send her a message when he was done packing. Satisfied with this, Hyena turned to leave. She will be waiting for his message, she reminded Han Fong. Additionally, since Han Fong needed to deliver the supplies, he should return as quickly as possible to avoid getting flu. Sure, wait for me tonight, Han Fong replied with a wave of his.
If you liked this episode, then don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. The next episode of this manhwa will be released once this part reaches 1,000 views or 5 comments requesting the next part.
Hand. Meanwhile, outside, the snowstorm was still getting worse by the minute, and back inside, Hyena was blowing up his phone, and same as before, Han Fong was neither replying her messages nor picking up her calls. At this moment, she was waiting impatiently by her door. Hyena wondered if Han Fong wouldn't show up again, so as she stared at the elevator which had stopped working, then up the flight of stairs, contemplating. Hannah was contemplating if she should climb the flight of stairs to Han Feng's apartment. Few seconds later, Hannah decided to do just that while internally cursing at Han Fong. If it weren't for the supplies, I wouldn't be looking for this bootlicker, she thought. After a few steps, Hyena was trembling all over as she took a deep breath. She was tired, and after starving for a few days, she only had little strength left. Almost there, she said, encouraging herself as she continued forward. Step by step, as she got closer to her destination, she noticed that the emergency lights up ahead were broken, plunging that entire section into darkness. She also heard sounds up ahead, and this made her question aloud if someone was there. So as Hyena continued to stare up the flight of stairs in the dark, Unsure whether to return or continue, she heard the sound of something being dropped, and before she could see or figure out what it was, a loud bam rang out. The emergency lights turned on at that moment, and from the looks of it, it seems that the lights was not broken, just off momentarily with the lights back on. Hyona's current condition wasn't particularly pleasing to see her entire figure.
If you liked this episode, then don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. The next episode of this manhwa will be released once this part reaches 1,000 views or 5 comments requesting the next part.
Was covered with flow. She shouted, calling Han Feng's name. Han Feng, who appeared immediately at the scene, apologized to Hyena. He explained that he fell asleep and was in a rush down the stairs when he saw her messages. Due to this, he ran into a railing and dropped the floor he was carrying. Hyena was furious, asking if Han Feng was a pig. How come he can't even do such a simple thing like carrying a bag of supplies properly? Feeling disgusted with her situation, Hyena tried removing the pieces of the black polythene in her hair. Han Feng, on the other hand, just stared at her with a smug look on his face. Satisfied that what he planned was executed perfectly, Han Feng specially prepared that food to use on her. He then offered the remaining supplies to Hyena, who readily took it, and as he opened it to check its content, she was displeased to find out that all the food inside were moldy, like trash that was not edible. Han Feng, scratching the back of his head, nervously said that he had to carefully eat to keep this leftovers in stock, but couldn't preserve them for a longer time. That's why they looked like that. Hyena picked up a piece and asked if the supplies was even edible. It was so dirty. Hearing this, Han Feng asked her to give it back if she dislikes and didn't want it, but Hyena quickly pulled away with a bag of supplies in her hand, saying she never said anything about not wanting it. This action didn't surprise Han Feng, who just stared at her expressionless internally. He laughed. So this is the goddess that I was pursuing with all my might, he thought. Hyena then took out a half-eaten apple and commented that although the surface of the apple had turned black, the inside should be fine and she should be able to eat it after she peeled it with a knife. Then she requested for the rest of the Florida too. Hyena was excited that there was still half of it left, amused. He just watched her after all. From his perspective, the supplies were garbage and he never even resulted in eating such garbage in his previous life. He was sure of Hyena upsetting her stomach for a few days if she does eat the garbage he gave her. Also, the current temperature was so low that showering in this weather was equivalent to flirting with death, so this meant that the flour would be on Hyena for a while. Han Feng thought of this as he turned to leave on his way. He felt something odd. It was as if someone was watching him. No, actually someone wasn't just watching him but also following him. So he immediately changed his route and decided to enter a floor to apprehend the culprit. As soon as he passed through the door, he hid behind it and waited patiently. Then suddenly, the shadow of the pursuer appeared at the door. Seconds later, a pair of boots followed. He quickly took action and grabbed the person by the jacket, then yanked the person on the floor seeking death. He shouted, and with a raised fist. Han Feng immediately halted his actions, startled.
If you liked this episode, then don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. The next episode of this manhwa will be released once this part reaches 1,000 views or 5 comments requesting the next part.
It was a girl, a young girl at that. Hey, are you following me? What are your intentions? Han Feng questioned, but the girl just stared back at him without uttering a word or making a sound. Realizing that the girl had no intention of answering him, he thought a little scare would be enough to get her to talk. So he put on an act of an old creep and said in a deep voice, "Oh, you don't want to say it right. If you don't tell me, I'll strip you naked." However, he was a little disappointed that this did nothing. As the girl continued to stare at him blankly, Han Feng soon gave up and got up. Realizing that the young girl might be clueless and doesn't even feel threatened with his act, he told her to forget what happened and this will also be the only time he'd let her go. She should just go home and stop playing pranks by spying on people. So as Han Feng took a step forward, he was again surprised when the young girl grabbed hold of his jacket. Turning his head, he questioned what her deal was. What did she want? But as she still chose to just stare at him, Han Feng told her to stop staring and just say what she wanted. Otherwise he would leave. Such weather this time around the girl just pointed in a direction ahead of her and again without uttering a word, "Do you want me to come with you?" Han Feng questioned and the girl replied with a slight nod, and with this Han Feng followed her and soon they came to a door which could be opened automatically provided you've been authorized. Also at the top right corner was a working surveillance camera. Seeing all this surprise, Han Feng couldn't help but wonder what was going on inside the apartment. Although spacious, was untidy with open boxes, clothes and other stuff littered everywhere. Did you prepare all this? The girl nodded again, so he asked the young girl if she knew that there was going to be a snowstorm. To this question the girl nodded again, then she finally spoke up. She said she knew there was going to be an ice age based on the calculations and result on the data she had. She then pulled her monitor on display to let Han Feng have a look. Seeing the chat ID in the homeowner's chat group, Han Feng immediately knew who she was. So with a surprised look, he asked for a confirmation if the young girl was indeed mysterious person in the chat group. And as he got his affirmation, Han Feng was amazed. Why did you bring me to your apartment? Did you bring me here just to talk about that?
Hey, quick fact, 97% of you watching aren't subscribed. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It's free, helps the channel grow, and keeps you in the loop. Thanks for your support.